I was about to come here and open the Zoom room.
Yes.
I came into the study. I'm about to click, and I like, oh my God, I was showing up without warm coffee and a delicious Dutch sweet. I was like, how can we ever talk about leadership without this essential tool?
I just took a quick walk into our local tiny wonderful bakery, and I could have walked out with an amaretto biscuit, which they make beautifully, and I didn't. So instant leadership fail. I feel like a fool.
I am a bit disappointed. And I tell you, like for a second, as you were telling the story, I thought you would say, I could have walked out with one amaretto biscuit, but I walked out with two.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, here it is. Here is the Timo I know.
Mm. Instead, walked out with none.
How do you feel now?
Foolish, but bouncing back is a leadership.
That is it. That is it. Resilience, my friend.
Resilience. Yes. Do you know what? I'm really getting into the flow of just trying to live in the moment and see where it leads me and not stress about what I should be doing.
Wait, are you by chance leading in real time?
It's feeling like it every now and again. Yes. I think because it's a load off to live in the moment and have this weird sort of trust that maybe something will unfold. That does not sound like CEO kind of planning and leadership, but for your own life, to lead by example as a leader in your own who you are, to kind of somehow have a magical sort of spiritual extra dimension to your trust without really stress testing what that is too much. Yeah, I find it lifts my spirit, like the stress goes.
Well, look, even if it was just that, won't you do infinitely better if your spirits are lifted?
Always. That's why I'm a slave to it.
No, but just because you're like, yeah, but it wouldn't work for a CEO. But like, I think even a CEO with a higher spirit would do better. So even if it was just that.
Totally.
And it's the last week before you go, and you told me, so there are a few things I want to kind of get done, and this and this and that. So that this is not, what's the word? It doesn't go in contradiction with planning.
Mm.
It just, one thing is planning out of obviousness.
Yes.
You look at it like, oh, you know what? Today I want to make sure that I'm going to take care of this thing for Thursday, this thing for next week, this thing for like, oh, I'm going to put this in the calendar. And one thing is to plan out of fear, really.
Yeah.
It's not like when we say leading in real time, we're not saying, hey, dude, just show up. Who cares? Don't bring the laptop. Just show up.
Right. I misunderstood the whole point of this. I thought it was do no homework, show up, and it'll all be fine. Oh, God, I knew there'd be a catch.
And this is me, because in my line of work, a lot of colleagues would say this, would say, show up and you will all be fine. And it's correct. Well, I would say slightly different. I would either say show up, and you don't know. It might not, but you'll be fine. In fact, show up and it's fine already.
Yes.
See, so it's true that everything will be fine because it already is. And that's one piece. And the other is, things go as they go. But how cool to know that whatever happens, you will know what to do. You will rise to the occasion.
Yes.
And if you rise to the occasion and things then go as you planned, awesome. If you rise to the occasion and then things go another direction, then you will rise to that occasion too.
Mm.
That's the game. It's like, I working with athletes, it's very clear to me. This, it's not about like, hey, you know what, do this so you will win the tournament. I don't know, but I can tell you that if you show up as you are, you go as far as you can go in that tournament.
Yeah.
And whatever happens, whether the opponent does a thing you didn't expect or whatever, you will know what to do then.
Yeah.
And if you win the tournament, you will know how to handle it. And if you lose the tournament, you will know how to handle it. It's just this thing of, I'm recently really obsessing over this notion of the GPS is not gonna, get angry at you after 7 times you do recalculate.
I did
Hey,
like
turn
that
right.
image.
But that's the beauty. You recalculate. Oh, but I was planning to go take the third exit and I got it wrong. Well, recalculate. It's such a, isn't it? Seriously, you drive with a GPS. I just think that we underestimate how relaxing and how much better we drive thanks to the fact that we know that we're there to do our best to follow the GPS. And when either something happens outside, and like an accident 50 meters in front of you, or you get the wrong exit, how cool that we don't need to consider like, oh my God, but what if I take the wrong exit and then, because you just know, because you saw it, it's like, oh, recalculate.
Yes. Yeah.
How cool.
Though I can add to that image, because it is cool, that I am still quite old fashioned when I drive and I navigate. We both like navigating with big old maps on the lap. So planning the route, I quite like having in my head, knowing where I'm going. And I'm not a control freak, but when it comes to travel, I just like to know where the nodes are and what to expect. It's organization in a good way. But getting used to having a GPS, the difference with it is, of course, it'll tell you real time. Should probably bring that up in quotes. What's going on in the traffic? And as you say, that beautiful image of when you thought you were supposed to hit a turn or missed it, the GPS can just recalculate with zero judgment. Yeah, I do love that image you wrote. It ties to a word that is the theme, I think
Oh, the word of the day.
The word of the day. Let's have the word of the day. And it is...
Da-da-da. I don't know.
You do know, because it's the title of what you've been writing about. It's the word responsibility.
Responsibility. Oh, you went for it. Whee!
Yeah, I think it's a really good leadership word, and how you've unpacked it recently. Kind of, I will say, we're mates, but reading it through again this morning, it slightly blew me away.
What did you hear in that?
Responsibility is this onerous thing, and what if we saw it simply as the word our ability to respond? I love that. And what I got from it, for me, was almost a little bit of encouragement that my instinct to shirk responsibilities was not all founded in selfishness. I think there was a wisdom instinct going on in me to not get shackled to a shame cycle of trying to fix everything for everyone. I sort of have a natural aversion to lack of freedom or being tied down. Kafkaesque mazes that's a sort of fear of mine, is going around in loops in administration forever. And the idea of not having my options open is an interesting psychology I should probably unpack one day. But actually, the instinct to not have to be a leader for the sake of it all these years, I think, is linked to what you're saying there, that you make it harder by trying to be responsible. I've never had to prove that. I'd rather keep my options open to see what the best way of responding is. So actually, I took it as a bit of an encouragement.
It's fascinating because it's coming up a lot in sessions. And
is it?
Yeah, because you talk to leaders, whether are leaders on a pitch, on a field, or leaders in a boardroom. A lot of the way come from responsibility. The reason why they can go on holiday, because they bring all of that. I mean, think about it. This is coming to mind, and I'm sure you're gonna connect the dots. And in this case, you're my GPS. I don't even have to worry about it. I'm just gonna say it because I know you will figure it out. But I don't know, but it's coming. This is what coming to me. I was studying in a session with a head coach yesterday. We were talking about this, how I was sharing in this drive from the Netherlands. I woke up. I didn't sleep much that night, but because of the baby and whatever. But regardless of how little I slept, the morning, it was a moment where I had the most energy. That makes sense, right? Like physically speaking, like on every minute, theoretically, I should have, progressively feel more tired. So I was there, just woke up, a cup of coffee, getting ready for the drive. I was exhausted by the driving.
Wow.
I didn't even get in the car. The drive, those 1,000 kilometers,
Yeah.
they were weighing on me. I was drained by the fact that I have to drive. I didn't even start. Like, how could I feel the tiredness of 1,000 kilometers? I didn't even drive. And I was sharing this, and I was telling to this ads coach, I'm sure that you had days off before, maybe a week that where you had a big game or whatever, it was a particularly busy week, where you were exhausted. The evening before a busy week, you were like, "Jeez, this week is gonna be so hard." So you were already tired, and you didn't do a thing.
Interesting.
Right? And we think, no, I'm tired because this is going to be a very busy week. Just like, oh yeah, no, I'm tired because I have to drive 1,000 kilometers. It doesn't work like that. Right? Like, it's like, well, today I have a marathon, so I'm exhausted. Like, no.
No. No, it doesn't do that.
Like, maybe after, right? Like, yet that's the thing. And they were telling me, oh, you're so right. Because actually today was my first day after a day off, and yesterday was off. And I went to the training center like I didn't stop, like it was the last day of the week. And therefore I actually handled certain situations not as well as I could. And I was a bit snappy and like, but you're right. It's like, well, what's that? Well, because I spent my day off with my mind full of all the stories, all the thoughts, all the things. And that was draining me. Like, I was creating in my head personally this image of the 1,000 kilometers, and like we create in our head the image of the hard week, the hard trip, the kilometers, the whatever it is. And we feel that in that moment. This is a simple, basic feature of how we work, that we see it changes everything. That's it. Whatever we feel is because we're thinking it in that moment. Whatever we think, we feel. There's no way around it. There's no other way for us to feel anything.
Yeah.
And there's no way for us to think something and not feel it. It's just how it works.
Yeah.
But if I see it, then what happened to me in the drive is knowing this, I was like, oh, and I'm like, oh, I am tiring myself with my thoughts. It's not the drive. It can't possibly be the drive. So knowing that, it's like, oh, oops. And I just stopped paying attention to those. They moved and I was fresh. Because the beauty, compared to when you run a marathon for real, the body actually need recovery time.
Yes.
You do. There's not like, oh, you're exhausted after the marathon and it's like, oh, I'll stop thinking about it. And suddenly you're back. Because that's the physical tiredness.
Yes.
But when it's mental, it only happens in the moment. The moment you stop creating your word as a tiring word, you immediately stop feeling tired. It doesn't matter if you've been doing it for 70 hours. As soon as you stop loading that file of, oh my God, the drive, the meeting, the week, the match, it goes. If you're not thinking it, you don't feel it. It's just how it works. And that's incredible. So I stop here and I leave it to you to connect the dots with responsibility.
So many dots. Well, firstly, I want to ask, what was the journey like in the end?
The journey was it was lovely with the family, but in terms of my experience, was this because my thoughts came and go just like yours, just like anyone listening. The difference is I wasn't particularly interested in them. What I was listening for was what's beneath our thoughts, which
Yeah.
is our guidance, what I knew. You have the radio and you have the GPS. So you tell me, so how was the trip? Well, like, look, sometimes in various countries, because we went through the Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg, France, Switzerland, Italy.
Lovely.
And so you have different radio stations. And well, sometimes the music was terrible.
That's part of it.
Sometimes was really fun. But at no point it looked to me like I had to take my directions from the song. So I didn't get lost.
No.
So the GPS was working. If, though, I thought that what was really important was the music, I would have put it really, really loud. So loud that I wouldn't have missed the voice of the GPS. Saying, turn right, like, oh, that's what we do. We think we're our thoughts. We think they're real. So we get really involved in the thoughts and we miss actually our clarity, our guidance that is beneath.
Drowning out our clarity with Europop.
That's another book.
It's definitely another book. And also, by the way, you did do the traveling correctly there by having FM on and keeping it open as you drove through all the countries.
But even if all you got is a song that you don't like, you're never obliged to sing along.
You're never obliged to sing along if you don't like it. Now, you bring me to a point here. Interesting idea. We are not our thoughts. So as you're describing the idea that our thoughts, we cannot help but feel, that's how it works. The trap we arguably fall into as modernists especially is, well, I think, therefore, that's me. And not just I am, but that's all I am. And you're suggesting, no, that's not the case. We're tapping into something that's deeper firmware than just the process of our intellect.
Yes. I'm not going to add anything to that. You said it perfectly.
Cool.
But it's huge. Can you imagine, like, believing, which is what we thought, which is what we think, believing we are our thoughts? It's not unlike thinking that we are the radio station we happen to be synchronized on. That's the set. Like, it's completely random. Like, I have the most random thoughts. Most of them we are very capable of seeing that it's not us, and we're like, babe. Some, like, well, it's on you to make sure that the team does that, and if it doesn't, it's, which we call responsibility. We think, no, that's me, that's important, I must absolutely do what the song says. And I tell you, it doesn't matter how good the song, taking life advice from songs is not necessarily the best strategy. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, oh, what should I do with my boss? Well, let's turn on the radio and see. Okay.
What came to mind for me was Kylie Minogue, "Better the Devil You Know." So I don't know I don't know what my brain's doing there. Let's think about my boss. Boss karaoke. What comes to mind? Well, actually, my boss is me, so I don't know what the psychology of that is.
Ooh, deep.
You make me think there of the context we're all in at the moment, of how to lead ourselves through an internet age, to put it boringly. But it's anything but boring. It's this fractured madness. And I've always wondered why people, especially with headline issues like gender, for example, I just use it as an illustration that people can identify with one sort of bandwidth of who they are and go all in on it and focus all their passion and lots of activity on one aspect of their personality or identity, a bit like focusing it all on one thought. And of course, the way we interact with the internet without this lovely mesh of interacting physically means our inner life comes straight out with no filter, with no interactivity. Yet that filtering in conversation, in relationship, in context is actually how we live in our the bigger mosaic of who we are. And I think being a leader means really checking that every time. Don't just hook on one aspect of who you are.
Yeah, I love that. The way it looks to me is not even, hey, come on, let's shake it up. Let's change. Let's fit. It's let's not freeze up.
Freeze up.
Because unless you decide that you're gonna live today by some story, some thought, some idea you had, best case scenario yesterday, worst case scenario maybe 15 years ago. Like, unless we decide, no, that's it, that's who I am. I know I did a personality test 3 weeks ago, so so unless we decide that we are gonna be that, we are inevitably ever changing, and that's the thing, responsible. We're inevitably responsible in the sense that we're able to respond to what's happening. So we change, we shift. The mosaic you talk about is just what you described to me is responsibility, the real one. So the paradox is this: by believing the idea that we have to be responsible and that's something we have to do, and therefore we freeze concepts, that gets in the way of actually our ability to respond, which is innate. And that is then why the concept, the manufactured concept of responsibility seems necessary, because we live in a frozen world where we don't see that capacity of being able to respond, and therefore we realize, like, oh, this is not going to work, so I gotta do something. And instead of realizing, like, oh, the only thing I can do is stop making it so hard, it's like, no, it's hard. We forget that we did it to ourselves, and so we then find strategy, which is make myself responsible by
Yeah.
And we go 2 layers far from actual responsibility, which is the easiest thing in the world.
For a long time, for more than 20 years, I've had this sort of idea, I'll say it a lot, that love is a verb. Like care. It's something you do. It's a choice to speak up or to deliberately not speak up, to act or to hold back. And I've always felt jolly pleased with that idea of love. Love is a verb, an unrequited doing word, as Massive Attack said. But in your piece that I read this morning, the No Way piece, it's the idea that care isn't something you do. I mean, actually it is. It has outputs, but for the purposes of this, care is something we are. Responsibilities, love is something we are, rather, and care is an output of love. Responsibility is something we are. It's just tapping into what's already there, and then that will give you actions, yes, but actually the idea that no, you are response-able. You just are by definition, and you are a wellspring of love. You just are by definition. You want to connect and you want to give life. That's what you are. So the idea of them trying to come up with this mechanism on top that looks more responsible. I think of my dear mate Gellin, who's an advertising legend, and he's always said, everybody loves somebody who's busy. And I think it can be as simple as that. We want to look like we're responsible by, oh, okay, how are you? Oh, yeah, busy. Yeah, but are you having fun? Are you being productive? Are you being effective? Have you still got your family, or have they left? What is this busyness of which you speak? Why do you think it's a qualification?
Yeah, and it's a drama, because
yes,
it's like saying, well, I'm responsible, so I'm drunk at the wheel all the time. And that's the most irresponsible thing you can do.
I'm so responsible.
Right, like, how many beers today? Whoa, like 50. No, but that's because that sense of always going, that is the antithesis, you say,
Yes, antithesis.
of who we are. Is the opposite of us at our best. And somehow, culturally, we decided that that's how we want our leaders to be.
I know.
Right.
Imagine if we said to leaders, how many beers of busyness have you had?
I love it.
I think you've had enough.
I love it. And wait, because here's the thing, because I can already hear someone listening and say, well, I am busy. I am.
Yeah,
you don't know all my responsibility. You don't know all the things I have to take care of. There is a complete difference between whatever amount of things you're doing, and busyness is a concept. Busyness is a thought. Busyness is tiring your mind out by constantly thinking of something that is not even there yet. That's busyness. It's useless. It just makes you tired. It's really like saying, like, I'm a really good leader. I put an alarm every 15 minutes in the night just to wake me up so I can arrive at work really, really tired. That's like, ooh, smart. I'll do that too.
Smart.
You could have 7,000 things to do today. If you're at the beginning of your morning and you're already driving the 1,000 kilometers in your head, it does not. And I tell you, the few times during the drive where I was a little bit more lost in those thoughts, and I was feeling that tiredness, nothing really happened, but they definitely were the moments where I was a little less lucid at the wheel.
Yeah.
Where I was a little less responsive. There was maybe like someone braking and I arrived a little later, so if we see, like, by constantly spinning in our head, we are losing our capacity of being responsible quickly. Just like me. But it's a really, think about it. Imagine this leader. Think about all these problems. It's almost like a cliche, an image that we can really all conjure. That is, I'm there, like, and I have the meeting, and then this, and then I have to call Bob, and then car crash. I have no idea what happened. Oh shoot, it was red. I didn't even see it. So imagine if that's what you did to your car. You're driving a company with maybe hundreds of people in it.
Yeah.
What a car crash is, there any bad decision? You're driving under the influence of thought.
And imagine there's a word implied, I think, all the way through what you just described as a scenario. It's the word panic. It's a sort of blind panic. That's an interesting phrase, that you are blinded by I must respond, I must lead, I must. And we've all seen managers and leaders become micromanagers, or kind of, they're difficult to work with. And I've really learned to just see panic behind their eyes doing that. It's like they're in a wrong mode, or possibly the wrong role for them. You make me think of another implication there, which is having the confidence to know what your type of responsibility is, how you respond. It's part of your leadership style, and knowing it. I'm thinking of our local authority here at BCP, Bournemouth Christchurch Pool. It's a big unitary authority in the UK, one of the biggest now. 3 towns come together. It's where Caroline works. And I was lucky enough to get to chat to the incoming leader of the council and the chief exec. They asked me in for a little chat the other day, very informally, but they're in the room with me with these 2 most responsible people in my town. And they're about to start a new administration. They've got big problems, budget holes, a last administration that left some problems, all the big issues of the climate crisis and society and costs. They've got, they're a definition of responsible. And they each have a different personality. And the new leader herself, she sort of wows me and Caroline with her natural ability to do a lot. She seems to work at sort of 1.5 or twice the times, when you listen to a podcast at faster speed. I'm sure she's functioning like that, but it looks like a natural output of who she is. I think it's fascinating. It's a really encouraging sign to watch different leaders next to each other, not try and be each other. And so somebody else, I would be much more contemplative as a leader. I'd have to sit back and not take on 20 things.
What I would say though is doesn't vary from person to person. It varies from moment to moment for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So the danger of thinking in terms of leadership styles, that again, see, if you were to believe that, like, oh yeah, this is who I am, you can put anything. You can even put I am God, whatever. But at the moment you freeze it, you're like, oh, I am this. This is my leadership style. Now, if you try to lead with that in mind, you're leading with an old thought. Because now it's true. Yeah. In this moment, it's in real time. Now it's like, if I would ask you, you would say, well, you know what? Here, this is today. I'm leading in this videos. I'm leading. I'm creating. Here's how I'm doing it. You know, I have to say, I feel calm. I took my time. I reflected. I did fantastic. But to freeze the form and try to do the same tomorrow would be to be like, thank you, GPS. I'm going to turn you off because yesterday I did 3 right turns, straight 4 kilometers, and then a left turn, and it got me where I wanted. So I'm going to do the same today. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
Because you're starting in a different place. You want to go to a different place. It's not going to work. Imagine if we were to do that. No, I remember once I was in a town, and there were roadworks with a deviation, and that time was really helpful to do a U-turn, go back 2 roundabouts, take the 3rd exit, and then another roundabout, and then left. So 2 years later, you find yourself again in roadwork somewhere else. You're like, oh, I know how I do it. You know, I have a proven model. I go U-turn, 2 roundabouts, left. You might not even have a roundabout. Then you're gonna freak out. There's no roundabout. And now the problem is of the town. See, I'm trying to apply my style. I'm applying what I learned, my strategy. It's the world that is not responding to me.
Yes, it's the world that's not responding to me. But what you're describing there is what happens in leadership all the time. It's so natural for us to go, oh, I did that before, I'll do it now. It's quite radical to think, try to come ready not to do that.
Look, a story concerns, like I was talking with a head coach of like Serie A, like he doesn't train anymore, but it was a top guy. He was telling me, we were talking about this kind of stuff, and he was telling me, well, look, and this was fun, it's super fun. I didn't see it this way, but he was telling me this as proof that sometimes the word doesn't comply and you can't do anything about it. Was exactly saying about, oh, it's the town that is wrong not to have a roundabout at that point. Yeah. So he said, look, I was in this team and I wanted to kind of create team spirit and whatever. So in that moment, I have this idea. And the idea is, I tell the team captain, guys, take your family, your girlfriends, all your teammates, and go have dinner. I pay. I'm not gonna come. But you guys have fun, and the tab is on me, right? And so, oh, cool. The team went. It was super cool. That really, that just was such a good idea. Lifted the spirits, whatever. Then he went to another team. And there were problems also there about the group wasn't really gelling. It's like, oh yeah, I know exactly what to do in this situation. So he goes to the team captain and it's like, guys, don't worry, take your girlfriends and your friends and your teammates, go for dinner. I'm not gonna come. The tab is on me. Go. And he was like, no, I solved it. Then he just never did. It's just like he was telling me, whoa, to this date. 10 years later, I'm still waiting. They never went. This is to tell you that some people are uncoachable. Some teams just don't gel. That was the moral of the story for him. Because he couldn't see, no, you were using something that was in the moment when it was, and try to apply it like this, force it into a situation instead of checking in. And I promise you that if he had checked in, if he wasn't in that thought frozen, you would have had most likely a different idea. It would be like, oh, guys, here's what we do. And well, maybe it would have involved the dinner, maybe not. It doesn't matter. Another coach, he said like, oh, there is this guy. Again, this was all to prove the point that we can't lead in real time, because you can do whatever you want, but probably some people just suck. Right? So there, I have this player, and it occurred to me, that specific time, it occurred to me to tell him he wouldn't play, on Sunday. So he got really pissed, and blah, blah, blah. But I knew he would play. I just didn't tell him. And then 10 minutes before the game, I told him. And he was super pissed. He goes to the pitch. He just plays this incredible game. So I figured it out. And then 2 weeks later, I did the same with another player. He played, it was horrible. I had to change him after 15 minutes. He just couldn't do anything right. So I'm confused. You see, probably. And then I did the same with the first player again, because I know, well, that's how he works, because that's how we think. Oh, he's one that needs encouragement. He's one that needs more. No, guess what? Terrible game again.
Mm.
But the moral of the story for him was, you see, it's just too variable, too complicated. You just have to accept that sometimes it is not going to work. But what he didn't see, he was more interested in what came out of his GPS than on the fact, than where it came from.
Mm.
Right? We are so interested in the content. It's really like missing the fact that there's a GPS, and we're like, turn right. So clever. Turn right. I like it. Cool, beautiful, genius in that moment, because there was traffic and I just didn't think about it. Yes, we take the parallel road. Genius. And then next time looking for a parallel road again. Instead of thinking, oh, hang on a second, I have a GPS. Let's see what it says now.
Mm. And what it says is pull over and have a coffee. There's a nice little patisserie right there.
Could be. Anytime, any leader, any person who has many recipes for success, has all the tools and studied, and has like, well, here's how you do feedback, and here's how you do this, and here's ultimately he does that because he doesn't trust himself or herself. That's it. Like, I don't think I could possibly handle the situation. So I scout for any book and thing I say and memorize all the maps, because then I'm going to have an answer for everything. Well, you're never going to have an answer for everything.
No.
Right? Now, we don't do this on purpose. We just turned out to believe something that wasn't true. And the image that always comes to mind is Santa. You don't shame a kid that believes in Santa. It's not like, how could you believe in Santa, you ridiculous monster? Like,
life is death and pain, kid. Get used to it. I'm fine. It doesn't matter. It's not real.
It's just, but the kid tells you, like, no. You will hear the kid tell his friends, like, no, I saw it. I saw him, because maybe it was a parent, there's that, whatever. I heard the steps on the roof. Like, it's real. I saw the presents. Until Sundays, one day you realize, like, oh, it was my uncle dressing up. But that's it. And from that day, you're just not going to write the letter anymore. But you're also not going to feel like, oh, stupid me out. There's a kind of lovability in,
yes.
Oh, okay. I just thought this was real. It turned out not to be. That's it. So what we are doing is not blame, oh, you're wrong. It's like, hey, if if I believe I'm not capable, I'm not responsible, I'm not able to respond, it kind of makes sense that I try to have as many maps memorized as I can, that I'm gonna keep thinking and repeating them in my head also on holidays to make sure I remember when I need them.
Yeah.
Oh, turns out that wasn't helpful. I thought it was. Oh well.
It turns out it wasn't all about me. Oh well.
Yes. It really looked though. It really looked like it though. So as long as it did look like that, I did the best I could based on the fact that it was all about me.
Yeah.
Oh, it wasn't.
It wasn't.
Oh well. That's there's nothing. There is an inherent innocence
Yeah, I
in
like
this.
that. That's a very caring way of putting it. It's a very understanding way. I've often said in our climate challenges and all the big interrelated problems that seem impossible, I've long said we're going to need a lot of grace over each other. And that starts with ourselves. Grace over our own inability, our own hypocrisies. Yes, but that's a very caring expression of it you put there. The innocence of thinking it was all about you. That's nice. Now let's grow up a bit and be a bit more effective and take some of that shame and weight off your shoulders so that you can, I don't know, do better.
And we want to.
Mm.
Like nobody purposely like, let me wake up and start punching myself. Right? Like it's like, oh, I didn't realize it was me doing it.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
I very wisely said to a friend of mine only the other day, you know that shame you keep giving yourself? Yeah, stop that. You can have that advice for free. Stop doing the shame thing. You should do that. She went, oh yeah.
Sometimes it's
Another job done.
But it seems obvious only when you see it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It's like, I know everyone is innocent, but I'm talking murderers. You have like, oh, there's that killer, terrible. He killed like 4 kids that were crossing the road because he was drunk at the wheel. But we are all driving drunk at the wheel. It's just a matter of degrees.
Mm.
And it might manifest in a different way. Maybe you're never going to pick up like a weapon and do something like that. But maybe you're hurting yourself, your family, your people in different ways.
Yeah, and where we are sort of taught and find it very easy to other people who've done extreme things. It's other people who are addicts. It's other people who kill. It's other, that sort of innocent talk that our stupid machine world loves to amplify. Also, we do it with leadership. Good leaders are something other. And that either means it relegates us to the benches. Oh, I couldn't be a leader because that's something other. Or we put that weight on our own shoulders as leaders. Oh, I must be something other.
You see, guys, given that I'm a worthless piece of shit,
given that,
I need to be different if I want to be a good leader. That kind of makes sense.
It does make some sense.
It's only when like, oh, turns out I was this incredibly capable human being with a built-in capacity to know what to do in the moment and inspire myself and others. Oh, too bad I found out only now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's, even when we say, oh, you just be yourself. Yeah, but if in my head, when you say be yourself, what I hear is be that wordless piece of shit. It's like, that's terrible advice, Timo. I'm not going to do that.
Yes.
No thanks.
Or be that standout genius who deserves X, Y, and Z. Yeah. It does depend on the story you frame about yourself and therefore the extended.
And any story is dangerous, including like, this is similar to what we were saying before about, well, I'm a kind of leader who needs space and does that. If you think that that's yourself, you're just acting a script that you believed. No, be yourself is be the light that shines in the moment. And it's ever so different and perfect for what's needed.
Mm.
That's also why this story is about trying to define as well. I'm a type person, I'm a B type person, I'm a this and I'm a that, and I'm all this. It's such a disservice to the vastity of who we actually are. Maybe you're way more everything than you thought. What about that? What if there was no need? All this thing, you're doing it in good faith because you just think you don't have it.
Mm.
Inspiring, well-being, right? Like creativity, innovation. Oh, well, I have the framework for it, which in itself is stupid. So, like innovation as in doing something, it's new. So how can you have a framework for it? It doesn't, no, we create a very fixed box that somehow is going to help us always come up with very different things. It's so weird. You want to be innovative? Well, answer these 4 fixed questions. Yeah, I know. This is what we do. We have these Monday meetings to promote innovations where every time we do the same thing. Wait, what? It doesn't make sense.
That's part of the big disconnect of living in the robot world that we do, that demands things get put in boxes, and the arguably this vibration going on in so many of us and so many leaders, this kind of, I can't express what it is. I think it's linked to that. It's always, our pains are always in some ways linked, I think, psychologically to expectations versus reality, inner or outer. And that's going on in all of us. That's why there's all this vibration, that our world, the world that we've been raised in, doesn't fit us. And that's the context in which we're leading. And that's the context we've got to respond to. But hey, some good news. We're made to be able to respond.
I think if every person knew this, that's it. The only thing they knew would be that, because 98% of our struggles come from fear of things happening we may not be equipped to deal with, and therefore do all that we can to avoid it. So if everyone only knew, oh, I'm made to be able to respond no matter what happens, can you see how much lighter we would cruise through the world?
This morning, I retweeted something from a friend of mine. She was quoting E.B. White, who's the writer that made Charlotte's Web and Stuart Little. And he apparently said, fact check it, but I arise in the morning torn between a desire to improve or save the world and a desire to enjoy or savor the world. This makes it hard to plan the day. What you should be doing, Mr. White, is responding to the day.
Go, Mr. White. No, I love that. One of the reasons why what we are saying is not more commonly noticed, let's put it this way, because we are saying it's already like this. We're not saying, hey, do it our way and you're gonna see. No, it's like, oh god, that's how you work already. Is that culturally we're so used to that sense of effort to know, like the way we assess if we are on the right path is that. I feel like if I experience effort, it must mean I'm progressing. Okay, so effort equal progress. So what this does is that the moments where we actually, because for one reason or the other, all of us sometimes show up as us.
Yeah.
Great us. So what happens is that, like, there is a crisis and we just like, oh, call this. And it's the simplest thing in the world. And it gets fixed. But because it was so natural, so effortless, we either not notice or attribute it to something else. It's like, yeah, no, but that's because it was Wednesday, or that's why because Josh was in, or that's why. No, I didn't do anything. Because we got the wrong idea that to know if I'm doing something, if I'm doing something right, the only way of knowing is how much effort I feel. So because in those moments when we are at our best, we have zero effort. It feels like we didn't do it. No, that wasn't my GPS. It can't be. I didn't feel anything. And I think that's one of the reasons why, see, real responsibility is the most natural thing in the world. Therefore, we barely notice.
Love it.
Right.
Real responsibility is the most natural thing in the world, and so we barely notice. Hey, I thought of you the other day when I was in a meeting. This is very like doing an interview. I find when talking to clients, it's like doing an interview on a show. So I'd done preparation. I actually swerved and did some time doing a little bit of research into their context, to have some nodes of thought and reference, to get some pin out in my mind of the world they were in. So I had some go-to references, but I knew that I wouldn't remember it like a script. It's not that sort of process. And I was sitting in the room and I had one moment slightly out of body where I was listening to them. And I knew I'd done all the homework, and I thought, I haven't got a thought in my head about what I'm going to say next, as he was talking, one of them was talking to me. And I thought of you in that moment. I had an out of body going, this is a good place to be, because this is where you're receptive, as you've always said to me, this is where you're receptive to what can come in as the responsive moment. And sure enough, we had a great conversation. All the right things that needed to come out seemed to come out. And I left feeling very peaceful about this particular meeting. And I think that's was a little note to me about how to, yes, prepare where you need to. So, because I did reach for one or two things I've prepared, but essentially in the moment, then being open. And that's when the magic of a great interview happens. When it doesn't feel like you did it as an interviewer, what you did was hold space and listen and respond and bring it out of other people. So there is things to enjoy, but it feels more like you did it together. It feels more like some magic happened that wasn't down to any one of you.
Yeah. And guess what? The magic is you.
The magic is here.
Magic is you. And I like it because I just cannot not say it, but I think how cool. See, at this point, you have a fork in the road. One way is, oh, wow, what a cool experience. I did so well. Let me see what I did. Right. So I prepared for 25 minutes. I wrote exactly half a page of notes, and then I showed up with nothing in my head. Cool. Next time I'll do the same. 25 minutes of preparation, half a page of notes, and it goes terrible. Because what you didn't do this time around was following a recipe.
Yeah. Yes.
So anything we freeze, like, oh, so it went well because of what I did. No, it went well because of who you are. And anytime you let that come out, it will have always a different shape, but it will always be great. But we're so interested. Well, how did you do it? Oh, I also want to do well in interviews. Tell me. And the only thing worth answering to that question is like, oh, I listened to myself. And when I knew to prepare, I prepared. And when I knew to stop, I stopped.
Yes, 100%.
That's the thing. Because who knows? Next time you might know, oh, turns out I wrote 7 pages of notes. Oh, not like cool. Wow. That's how it's showing up for. This is what the GPS is suggesting. Right? I'm not what you were saying, you have freedom. But look how little infinite, little boxes or chains we create about like, well, no, I can't possibly do, or should I do this, or should I do that, or should I prepare too little, too long? Blah, blah. No, like, guess what? If you're listening to yourself, you're free to prepare nothing, prepare for 7 days before a 10 minutes call, and anything in between, because you will know. Just like any road, you're free to turn left, right, to side, depending on where you're going and what the road is. It would be very weird to look at 3 left turns and like what we were saying before. And like, oh no, you're free to go wherever, move the car in whatever way it makes sense in that moment. And guess what? You have a GPS, so you don't have to worry about memorizing it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. The word responsibility was brought to you by the letters R and responsibility. Mate, what a lovely conversation. There's something to go away and think about. I shall think about the different grains of that for what I do for the rest of the week.
I love that. Inspiring as usual.
As ever, mate. Let's go and top up our coffees.
Ready? I'm gonna slam the door. See you Thursday.
Slam it.
Oh, boom!